So, what if the path to real spiritual freedom wasn't about some huge dramatic gesture? What if it was about transforming the small, everyday things we do into a kind of divine worship? Well, that's pretty much the core idea behind Kriyā Yoga, as it's laid out in the Śrīmad Bhagavatam. We're about to dive into this ancient blueprint for turning, the mundane into something truly sacred.
This whole incredible system, it all kicks off with one really powerful question. A sage named Uddhava asks Lord Krishna, how do I break free from the bondage of my own actions? I mean, think about it. That's a question that still hits home today, right? How do we make sure what we do leads to freedom, not just getting more and more tangled up?
And Krishna's answer, well, it wasn't just some simple one-line piece of advice. He lays out a whole, complete, actionable system. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to trace that journey, and we'll see how it's designed to take someone from the outside stuff, the rituals, to a really deep internal realization.
Okay, so the very first thing Krishna points out is this amazing idea of flexibility. He's basically saying there isn't just one single rigid way to do this. No, my way or the highway here. Instead, he gives us a framework with options. So let's take a look at what those options are.
He calls this system Kriyā Yoga, which is basically a path of devotional action. And he lays out three main ways to approach it. You've got the Vedic way, which is based on the scriptures. Then there's the Tantric way, which involves more specialized rituals. And of course, a mixed approach that combines bits of both. The big takeaway here is incredible. You get to choose the path that actually fits you, that feels right for your own nature.
All right, so that's the method of worship. But then there's the question of what you worship. And believe me, this is where the options really open up. Krishna actually outlines 8 different forms that the divine can be worshipped in.
I mean, just look at this range. It's incredible. You can worship a physical deity made of stone, wood, metal, you name it. It could be a painting or even something totally temporary, like a form made of sand or clay. But here's what gets me, the mental form. The idea that you can worship the divine entirely within your own heart. That's a game changer, right? It means this practice is for everyone, no matter what you have or don't have.
So all those forms basically get sorted into 2 big categories, movable and immovable. And the difference is really just a practical one. Think of it this way. With an immovable deity, like a big statue in a temple, the divine presence is considered to be there all the time. But for the movable forms, the ritual actually includes a formal invitation, and then, at the end, a respectful farewell to that presence.
Okay, so we've got our options, we know the basic framework. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty, the ritual itself. The original text is super detailed, just packed with information. But we can actually break it all down into a really clear, step-by-step blueprint.
So this whole process, which might sound really complex, can actually be boiled down to 4 main stages. It's preparation, then invocation, followed by the offering, and it all wraps up with surrender. Let's break down what's really going on in each of these steps.
First up, preparation. This is all about getting yourself and your space ready. It's about creating a sacred state, both inside and out. So you're purifying your body, you're carefully gathering all the materials you'll need, preparing the sacred water, and really just consecrating the whole area and your own mind for what's about to happen.
Next is the invocation, and this is where we see something really key. The process doesn't start by calling out to some distant god. No, it starts inward. You first meditate on that supreme life force that's already right there, inside your own heart. And only after you make that internal connection do you then invite that presence into the external deity.
All right, step 3, the offering. And this is a really rich sensory experience. It's meant to engage your entire being. We're talking about a whole spectrum of gifts, beautiful clothes, fragrant oils and flowers, incense, lamps, and of course, carefully prepared food. But it's not just things. The offering even includes art, like singing songs and dancing as part of the worship.
And that brings us to the final step, surrender. You can think of this as the emotional peak of the whole thing. After all the prep and the offerings, it all comes together in these acts of pure reverence. Singing praises, bowing down completely, and offering a heartfelt prayer for protection. It's really a moment of total humility and trust.
So we've just walked through this beautiful and, kind of elaborate ritual. But here's the thing. All of these external actions, they're all designed to build something on the inside. So now, let's pivot to what Krishna says is actually the most important part of this whole practice, the inner spirit that makes all of it meaningful.
Which, of course, brings us to a really important question. I mean, after hearing about all these fancy offerings and detailed steps, you have to wonder, is all that external stuff, the grandeur of it all, what really matters?
And Krishna's answer is just so direct and clear. He says, look, you can make the biggest, most elaborate offerings in the world, but if they come from a non-devotee, someone without that genuine feeling, they just don't please me. The outer show means absolutely nothing without the right inner state.
But then he flips it, and this is beautiful. He says that even the simplest possible offering, literally just a little bit of water, if it's offered with real faith by a devotee, that is the most pleasing thing in the world to him.
So the point couldn't be clearer, right? The quality of your devotion is infinitely more important than the quantity of your offering. It's the sincerity, the faith, that's the real currency in this practice. It's not about how much you have or how fancy the ritual is.
Okay, this brings us to the real climax of the whole teaching. Because you might be thinking, well, if it's all about the inner feeling, why go through all these rituals in the first place? What is the ultimate goal here? Where is Kriyā Yoga actually supposed to take us?
Well, after detailing this entire path, from picking a method to getting the space ready to making an offering with true faith, Krishna reveals that the whole thing, every single step, is designed to lead to one simple but incredibly profound truth.
And this is it. The ultimate goal, the final realization, is this. The divine isn't just in that statue or that painting on the altar. He says, I am present as the supreme soul within all beings and within your own self.
And that just changes everything, doesn't it? It completely reframes the whole point of the ritual. The ritual isn't the goal, it's the training ground. It's a practice to help discipline our minds, to help us learn to see the divine not just in one place for an hour a day, but to see it everywhere and in everyone, all the time.
And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. If we really, truly took that to heart, the idea that the very same divine presence we worship in a sacred space is also inside every single person we meet, how would that change things? How would that fundamentally change the way we see the world and everyone in it?
What if the ultimate user manual for, for spiritual connection actually existed? And what if it was penned not by some scholar, but was detailed by the divine itself? Today, we are opening a really fascinating source, an ancient conversation that's basically designed to be the definitive blueprint for devotional life.
We are diving deep into a section of the Bhagavatam, and it's this conversation between the Supreme Lord, Krishna, and his devotee, Uddhava. And Uddhava isn't looking for abstract philosophy, he's asking for the nuts and bolts.
Right, the practical step-by-step process.
Exactly. The process of dedicated worship, which is known as Kriyā Yoga. He wants to know what leads directly to what the text calls the highest good for humankind.
And our mission for you is to really pull out those key insights. I mean, this manual covers everything.
It does, from the types of worship to the specific materials and, crucially, the mindset you need.
We want to understand how this ancient process is, well, how it's meant to be the mechanism that frees you from the bondage of material work.
And it's so important to get the weight of this. This isn't just one Lord speaking to one devotee. Uddhava confirms that this very process, this Kriyā Yoga, it's repeatedly endorsed by the great sages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, figures like Narada and Vyasa. So it's like a globally endorsed blueprint.
Okay, let's unpack this blueprint then. I want to start with something that sounds surprisingly modern, this idea of radical accessibility. What are the rules of engagement? Does everyone have to follow the exact same steps?
And that's where the very first instruction is so illuminating. The Lord clarifies that his worship isn't monolithic, it's threefold.
Threefold.
Vedic, tantric, and mixed. And here's the core principle. The devotee should choose the method that aligns with their own nature and inclination.
So it's a custom-tailored approach.
It is. It's about personal fit.
That right there reframes this idea of ancient, rigid worship. But the next piece of information is even more astounding, I think, especially when you consider the societal structures back then. The text stresses universal inclusivity.
It truly does. The Lord explicitly states that this path is approved for all social orders and spiritual stages. It's for the ultimate welfare of humankind, saying it's the highest path for everyone, even for women in Shudras.
Wait, hang on a second. I have to pause you there. Given the historical context, with ritual purity and social stratification, wasn't that statement just incredibly progressive? I mean, why stress that?
Well, it highlights that for the purpose of devotion, the soul's capacity for love and sincerity. It trumps all those temporary external labels.
So your caste, your education, gender, none of it matters.
For this, no. The ritual is just a scaffold. The connection itself is open to everyone seeking that highest good. The goal is Nishre Sin Nagnam, the ultimate good. And that path, well, it has to be universal.
Okay, so since the path is universal, does that also apply to where you worship? Is it only in some grand temple?
Not at all. The list they provide shows incredible practical resilience. You can worship the Lord in 6 principal locations. First, the deity form, or Akaya.
Right, the statue.
Then the altar, or just sanctified ground.
Right.
Stantala, which could be something temporary you set up. Third, the sacrificial fire, Agnya. Then the sun, Suri.
The sun itself?
Yes, and water, Apsu. And finally, and this is perhaps the most intimate, within your own heart, Hadi, or in a learned person.
That just removes the whole spatial barrier, doesn't it? The inner sanctuary is just as valid. You're never without a place of worship.
Precisely. Now, if you do choose the most common external route, which is worshiping the deity, the source gets very specific about the forms.
It lists 8 types. The Pratimavida, they range from permanent things like stone, wood, metal.
Right, and gem. But then they go down to temporary substances like clay, painted images, sand. But there's one that really stands out.
The mental form.
Yes, the mental form is listed right alongside the physical ones, which reinforces that the internal devotion, the visualization, is a completely valid form of worship in itself.
And it practically helps people who just can't afford or access a physical form.
Exactly. And there's a key distinction about installation. If a deity is permanently fixed, say, a huge stone statue in a temple,
Okay.
the rituals of formal invocation and dismissal are not required. The divine presence is considered constant.
But for movable ones, you have to do the whole invocation, the avahana, and then the dismissal, the udvasa.
Correct. It's a system designed to honor the varying degrees of permanence.
So, assuming you've chosen your form and location, what's the first step for you, the person? It starts with some intense preparation, right? Purification.
It does. It begins with external cleansing, your teeth, your body, often with ritual bathing using clay and mantras. That's ogashute. But that has to come before the internal purification.
And how do you do that? How do you purify yourself internally?
By performing your daily duties, like sanya, but with a specific pure resolve.
Yeah.
A sakbal. This isn't just checking a box. It's sanctifying your intention, making sure every action in the ritual is aimed only at devotion.
That connects right back to what you said about sincerity. It's not about the motion, it's the intention behind it. So you're purified. What's the practical setup?
You gather your materials, sit on a seat, ideally of dharva grass, facing east or north. And a crucial step is preparing the sanctified water pot, the kalasha. You use that to sprinkle and consecrate the whole space, the materials.
Okay, now the offerings. The manual lists fragrances, flowers, food, and this sounds like it could get expensive, creating a kind of barrier. But the Lord gives this massive philosophical escape clause here.
He does. The devotee is advised to use either proper traditional items, dravya prasid, or, if their means are limited,
Just use whatever is available.
whatever is available, yatha labher. The text just immediately deflates the importance of wealth.
Which brings us to the most critical ingredient, right? The actual currency of devotion. And the Lord says it has to be sincere devotion, amaya.
In heartfelt devotion, hidi bhavana. This is the sincerity test. And it's probably the most important lesson in this whole deep dive. The Lord contrasts it perfectly. He says even abundant offerings from a non-devotee do not please me.
But on the flip side, a simple offering of water, varyapi, if it's given with faith by a sincere devotee, is most pleasing. So if I'm just an average person, stressed about affording the right ritual items, the gold, the ghee, the Lord is basically saying your heart is the budget.
Exactly. It fundamentally reframes any economic barrier to practice. It's a declaration that devotion is democratic. You can have the biggest temple, the most expensive offerings, but if the intention is impure, maybe it's for fame or profit, it's deemed worthless.
A humble gift with genuine love is priceless. That really is the aha moment of the manual.
It is. And building on that, the manual does note some specific preferences. For deity worship, bathing and decorating are most pleasing.
Right.
For fire worship, it's oblations drenched in ghee. So the ritual is tailored to the context.
Let's look at the services that complete the process. For fire worship, there's this really vivid instruction on how to visualize the Lord in the flames.
And this isn't casual meditation, it's hyper-focused. The devotee has to see the Lord as radiant, like molten gold. He must be seen as peaceful, with 4 arms, holding the conch, disc, mace, and lotus. and adorned with specific symbols like the Shivatsa mark and the brilliant Kastapad.
That level of detail forces you into complete absorption. You're basically installing the divine presence with your mind. What about the physical services after these main offerings?
They emphasize total engagement, leading to what the text calls full absorption, tanmaya. The physical acts include anointing with oil, massaging, showing a mirror to the deity, bathing, offering fragrant mouth fresheners.
So you're treating the deity like a living, honored guest.
Absolutely. But then it goes beyond chores into something almost theatrical. The devotion has to become alive. You're told to become completely absorbed, even for a single moment, by singing, dancing, and acting the Lord's pastimes.
Hearing and narrating stories.
Yes. The instruction isn't just to perform a duty, but to be joyously lost in the act of service.
And the final act of this whole sequence is one of just utter humility.
Complete surrender. The devotee offers prostrated obeisances, falling flat like a stick, Dachavat Pranama. You place your head at the Lord's feet and you offer a specific prayer. O Lord, please protect me from the dreadful ocean of death and danger. It's an acknowledgement of the ultimate goal, freedom.
Okay, we've covered the whole process. Let's wrap up by looking at the consequences, the rewards, and the punishments outlined in the text. What happens to someone who performs these grand, continuous services, like building a strong temple?
The rewards are structured and, well, they're grand. Installing the deity, building a temple, creating beautiful flower gardens, dedicating resources. This leads to high rewards. Sovereignty over the three worlds, attaining the realm of Brahmaloka, even achieving Sodhimukti, which is equality with the Lord's own opulence.
But the ultimate perfection, as the text notes, is worshipping with Nirapekhyana with no material motive at all, just pure devotion.
That is the pinnacle, the perfection of Bhakti Yoga. But on the other hand, the manual gives a really severe warning about sacrilege.
And this warning is incredibly harsh. It says anyone who steals resources that have been offered to deities or to spiritual authorities,
Even if they gifted it themselves.
is warned they'll be born as an eater of filth for countless thousands of years.
It's a potent statement. It's meant to impress upon you the sanctity of these offerings. But the most profound lesson about consequence comes in the final point. And it's about shared spiritual responsibility.
Right. The source says the burden of any act, good or bad, is shared far beyond the person who actually did it.
That's right. The result is shared equally by four parties: the performer, the instigator who inspired it, the helper who assisted, and, this is the most startling one, the one who merely approves, Anumodu too.
So, if someone does something sacrilegious and I just sort of nod my head in agreement, or I silently approve of it, I bear the exact same spiritual consequence.
That is precisely what the text states. The result is shared equally. It implies this spiritual ecosystem where even passive agreement carries profound weight. It basically turns spectators into participants.
Wow. Okay, so to synthesize this deep dive, the Lord has given a complete, really compassionate blueprint for devotional life. It's a path for absolutely everyone, no matter their background. All it requires is sincerity and faith. The process is this detailed mechanism to train your consciousness toward the Lord, who is present not just in a deity, but as the supreme soul within all beings and within one's own self.
The perfect blend of high ritual and absolute internal sincerity. And that ultimate lesson, as you just said, is the principle of shared consequence. We learned that the one who merely approves of a malicious act shares equally in the negative result.
And you, listening, you're now an informed learner who knows the spiritual weight of passive endorsement. So this raises an important question for you to consider. If passively approving a malicious act can have such profound, long-lasting consequences, what does that imply about the spiritual weight of the actions, both positive and negative, that you endorse or encourage every single day, maybe on social media or in your professional circle? Do you truly want to share the result of every action you choose to approve? Something to consider as you move forward.